Good morning, Titans. I am Ms. Morris, the College and Career School Counselor here at Alexandria City High School, and I want to thank all of you for not just being present, but for really being present here today. Happy Black History Month to all of you. I present to you the wonderful Black Student Union, Mr. Shabazz, who is hosting these events today, this month. And then we have some wonderful panelists that also attended historically Black colleges and universities. I have some really amazing data to talk about the socio-economic benefits of historically Black colleges and universities that are just as old as some of the universities that your parents and parents went to, okay? How they started and the history about historically Black universities, Black colleges and universities, and why they are very necessary for the United States, for Black and brown people that are underserved in this country. So I am going to present to you Ms. Miracle Gross, who is the president of Black Student Union, and we'll take it from
there. Good morning, everyone. I would just like to start by saying thank you all for being here, and thank you to the teachers who took out their class time today to be with us, because this is important. So today we're going to talk about HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges and universities. So what are HBCUs? HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. The designation of HBCUs was created by Title III of the Higher Education Act of 1965. This law defines these schools as any historically Black college or universities that was established prior to 1964, whose principal mission was and is the education of Black Americans. HBCUs were created to provide African Americans with the skills and education to achieve success and financial security in an environment against discrimination, an environment designed to uplift. Resultantly, each school's overwhelming commitment to Black students remain unparalleled. Studies show that Black HBCU graduates are generally better prepared for life beyond college and more engaged at work than non-HBCU graduates. Additionally, Black HBCU grads are more likely to be thriving in purpose and financial well-being than non-HBCU students.
Okay, so some HBCU facts. What is the oldest HBCU? Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, founded in 1837. How many HBCUs are there? There are 107 HBCUs across the country, enrolling 228,000 students. What is the largest HBCU? It's North Carolina A&T, and the number one HBCU is Spelman College of Atlanta, Georgia.
So you might ask yourself, why would you choose an HBCU? There are three main things. It's a sense of belonging, rich culture, and confidence. For belonging, because as we grow up, we don't know where to fit in, but with HBCUs, you have people all around you who are all the same skin tone as you, and it allows you to get a higher education when no other colleges would, and also to be comfortable in the society of college. And also for rich cultures, they have like step teams and stuff like that. Like I know that homecoming is like one thing to you want to see. So there's that, and also able to explore your own interests and ambitions in the context of race and culture to what they belong to, and confidence. HBCUs let students form their own identities as accounts educators, engineers, artists, writers, lawyers, etc., without throwing their race away.
So some of your favorite celebrities actually attended HBCUs. I just put 5 in here, but there are a bunch of NFL athletes, NBA athletes, rappers, musicians, TV show hosts who attended HBCUs and are extremely successful. Up here we have 2 Chainz, who attended Alabama State University. We have E40, who attended Grambling State University. Oprah Winfrey, who attended Tennessee State University. Terrence J., who attended the illustrious North Carolina A&T. And Taraji P. Henson, who attended the illustrious Howard University.
And so let's not just say that they attended, they are graduates of these universities. So that's something that's really important.
And also big.
Okay, we have some celebrities that are right here at Alexandria City High School, and they are panelists that have attended historically Black colleges and universities. So I really want everyone to feel very comfortable in asking questions. I'm sure some of you have some questions. I have a couple of real data-oriented students in here that really are going to want to know some data, and I have some data for you close to the end. But let me introduce them. We have Mr. Shabazz, who is a graduate of the real HBCU, Hampton University. We have Mr. Vincent.
And I'm a graduate of the Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Hello everyone, my name is Toluani Roberts and I'm a May 2021 graduate of Howard University.
She's the youngest of the group.
I am Mrs. Varner, and I'm a graduate also of Hampton University.
All right.
I'm Catherine Lewis, and I'm a graduate of Southern University at New Orleans, part of the Southern University subsystem.
So these wonderful panelists are a part of the rich fabric of Alexandria City High School. As you can see, we have teachers that have been to Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and these amazing HBCUs, and we are all growing and living and learning and teaching students. So I want you to really focus on the questions, how they're asked, and think about some questions that you may have yourself. And I have some really wonderful statistical data to share with you later to back up not just some of these, and just to let you know that the ground has always been level, okay? And we just need to make sure that the message is properly communicated. And by using statistical data, data always drives need, and it drives the economy. And that's what we have for you today. So go ahead and start with your questions, Ms. Brooks.
So the first question that we have for the panelists is, how did you end up at an HBCU?
1 minute only, please.
Oh.
How did you end up at your
Oh, well, it wasn't a choice. It was already etched in my upbringing that I was going to a HBCU. My stepfather was a graduate of Fisk University. He wanted me to go to Fisk. But I went to another HBCU. So I went to all-black Catholic school in high school also. So it was always, it was part of my application process. I only applied to HBCUs.
I don't like to say ending up at an HBCU because that was my choice. And growing up in Washington, D.C., my parents worked really hard, and I attended Catholic schools on Georgetown University's campus, where you had a lot of individuals that didn't look like me. I didn't see a lot of black and brown people. So in that case, I wanted to attend somewhere where I could feel more of a sense of self. And then I had an aunt and a cousin who were older than me that attended Hampton University. And one of the sayings at Hampton is, the legacy continues. And I wanted to continue that legacy within my family. So that's why I attended Hampton University, even though I had other colleges and universities that were like throwing money at me, but I felt like they were throwing money at me by being a smart black female. And I wanted to be more than just looked at as a statistic to help your ratings that you had a smart black female going to your particular college. So I wanted my legacy to continue within my own family, and my oldest daughter currently attends North Carolina A&T. So.
Hello again. Okay, step to the side. Spotlight's on me. Howard actually was not my first choice. My first choice was VCU, if y'all are familiar with it. But I had gone to VCU's open house. I was like, this is cool, this is great. But then I got accepted into Howard, and I went into their ASD Accepted Students Day, and I spent the whole weekend on campus. And I can say that going from a space where I was usually the only black person in a room to a place where everyone looked like me, I immediately felt at home, and I felt like I had a family. And after that weekend, I sent in my decision for my money, application money, or acceptance money, and said, okay, I'm going here, Howard is my new home. And honestly, I couldn't see myself anywhere else.
Can you hear me? So I grew up in DC and went to DC public schools, McKinley Tech. I had two goals when I was graduating: get as far away from DC as possible and go to college. I was the first person in my household to go to college, and I was also in ROTC, lieutenant commander, and Southern University was recruiting. Their ROTC program was in DMV recruiting. And they didn't offer me a scholarship, but they offered me a place and fast-tracked my admission. And when I looked on the map and saw how far that was away from DC, I went, and I'm so glad that I went.
I also agree that the end up sounds, sounds like we sort of just fell out of the sky and wound up there. But I want to be clear. In my high school, from North New Jersey, a very tough place, a very black place. Essentially, my high school didn't actually have AP courses, but we were right across the street from Rutgers University Newark campus, which is a very large, predominantly white institution. So in short, I went there, I was in a special advanced program called the Renaissance program, where because we didn't have AP courses, the school system would pay for advanced students to take courses at Rutgers Newark. So I actually took a full load my senior year. So in short, I was running from one of my classes at Rutgers, and I was trying to catch the bus. And as I was running one day, basically the Rutgers University's police evidently followed me, and I didn't realize it, but I was just running to catch the bus. So by the time I got to the bus stop, there was like 4 or 5 different Rutgers University police cars showed up, and one jumped out and drew his gun, he said freeze and the whole thing, and I'm like, what's going on? So the end result was that because I was running in black, evidently they assumed that I was involved in mischief. I had to actually show them my ID. So of course I was traumatized. So they drove off, and I'm sitting there left to my own thoughts. And I said, there is no way that I will spend 4 years at a school that could look at me running and think that I was a threat. I wanted to go someplace where I was affirmed. And again, because I considered myself a gifted writer, I had won national awards and debate and different things, I felt like I was a little arrogant, and I felt like I should go to, not only was I going to go to a historically black college, but I wanted to go to the equivalent of Harvard and Yale and those kinds of elite schools. So I wanted to go to the equivalent in my world, the black world. And that left, schools that I applied to. And Hampton was at the top of that list, which is the standard of excellence. And I never looked back. Hampton versus Texas.
The standard of excellence. I'm going to continue. They answered a couple of the questions about how their experience was. I think we have some sorority or fraternity brothers in the house. Did anybody want to speak on that? Mr. Shabazz, Phi Beta Sigma?
Yes, well, I can speak on it. Do you have a question?
I actually wanted to know how you decided or were chosen to be a part of Phi Beta Sigma.
Well, when I did it, you had to be a man to do it, let me just say. Some of you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, I think that there are 5 major black fraternities. And because I was a history major, a lot of the people that I looked up to, people like Huey P. Newton, who co-founded the Black Panther Party, George Washington Carver, James Weldon Johnson, so many giants that are in the African American community that were leaders and thinkers and philosophers. Dr. Lane Leroy Locke, the first Black Rhodes Scholar, who was a professor at Howard. Just all of these men I really admired, and essentially, I'm from a place where Phi Beta Sigma is very, very strong. So I knew that there was only a short list of things that I would consider joining. When I got to Hampton, looking at all of the different sort of black male archetypes, I was really drawn to the Sigmas who were very down to earth. A lot of them were, first generation, like myself. And I just really admired how down to earth they were, how approachable they were, and how conscious they were. They were sort of they were the brothers who were in the African Studies cluster. They were very active, participants in a lot of what was going on campus. And I couldn't see myself as a part of any other organization. So Phi Beta Sigma was the one that I selected because, again, of the men that were in it that I admired.
Anyone else got any Divine Nine?
I am not part of the Divine Nine, but I am in a fraternity, Kappa Phi Kappa, which is an international education fraternity. And one of the reasons I joined it, because at the time, I'm sure you can tell I'm the oldest up here. When I joined it, it was the only black chapter in the world. And I thought it was very inspiring that I could become a member of a fraternity that only had one black chapter. And my fraternity is dedicated to passing on the experience of education. So we are not part of the Divine Nine. We don't party, stomp. We don't do any of those things. We give lectures.
Thank you. Ms. Mason.
Hello everyone, again. And I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And when I got to Howard, or one thing that inspired me to join this organization was being a part of a legacy of women that are trailblazers and change makers, people who see a need and think about how they are going to meet it, and how they can uplift their community, the black community, and black women in general. And just and not only that, all of my founders are educators in some form or fashion. And that really inspired me, things that, one of my founders, Lisa Slow, she started the first black middle school in DC. So, she saw a need and she's like, how am I gonna meet that? And so when I got to Howard and I realized that I had the opportunity to be a part of, or had the opportunity to apply to join Alpha Chapter, because 5 out of the 9 Divine Nine sororities and fraternities were founded at Howard. And I was like, why not be a part of this legacy? And here I am, 2 years later.
Can you hold the mic as we continue? Does anybody else want to speak on the Divine Nine spirits? Okay. Is what I want to get right to is how did your HBCU experience prepare for life at the college? Because we have many students that are saying, Ms. Morris, if I go to an HBCU, how am I going to be ready for the future? How am I going to be prepared for dealing with the greater population? Okay, so let's talk about that, because you're currently a graduate student at Georgetown right now.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a master's student studying education policy and advocacy at Georgetown right now, but I was a May 2021 spring graduate of Howard University. And I can say that the first way that it shaped me was just instilling confidence in me. When you are surrounded by people that not only look like you, but are achieving the goals that they've set for themselves and being successful, it's a reminder that, oh, if they can do it, who says that I can't do that? And coming from a predominantly white institution, in high school, daily I felt like, I'm not sure, am I capable? Can I do this? There was a lot of imposter syndrome. But when I got to Howard, I feel like all of that was erased away. I had a community behind me. I had people to uplift and support me. I never felt stupid or slow or incapable. And if I did, there was someone to remind me that I was. So when I graduated from Howard, I left with confidence. I left with a network, like a crazy network. Anywhere I go, like in the world, I can find a Howard graduate. Always someone yelling, HU, and I'm like, oh my God, don't look at me, please.
Can see Siobhan on that HU.
Yeah. Howard is a really HU, I'll say that. I'll leave that there. But yeah, I'll just say the confidence, the network, and the skills. I learned how to market myself. And I feel like that's one big thing at Howard. Like, we are taught, like from the moment you step on campus, you know how to spit your Howard intro. So who you are, where you're from, what your major is. And then from there, you know how to spit an elevator pitch, what you're about, what you want to do with your life. So yeah, confidence, network, marketing myself, and just love in general. I was surrounded by love every day. It felt like one big happy family. So
Ms. Barner,
I have to agree that definitely with attending an HBCU, it gave me even more confidence than before I stepped on the campus. Just the overall and overwhelming support, because it is such a family setting. And even to this day, if I have on Hampton paraphernalia and you're going out and about, or someone else attended Hampton or goes to Hampton, they address you. Oh, you go to Hampton, or you went to Hampton? And you're like, yes, and you have a little conversation. The first thing is that they embrace you with a hug as if they've known you for years. So just that whole sense of feeling of like a family, that whole sense of if you need something, you know where to go, and then even afterwards to be able to instill that in others, that's something that I developed by attending Hampton.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Family, love, and even your connection with you and your ancestors. I know that when I stepped foot on campus, I initially went to Xavier University, and it's the only HBCU that is a Catholic university. And it's just like stepping into a whole nother world. Once you attend an HBCU, you're taught who you are as an African in society. And it teaches you your historical context as to who you are, and why it's important that you understand that your crown of being Black in America and being born Black is a badge. So that's what my HBCUs taught me. I believe that every Black person should have an HBCU experience so they can be educated as to who they are and why they are so powerful and important. So my experience at an HBCU, or those two, was life-changing, and I wanted that experience for my daughter, and she graduated from an HBCU and is currently at Morehouse for graduate school, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, how you want to continue the legacy of your children attending HBCUs. Even though I'm giving her what she needs at home, she went out and got an additional sense of pride being a Black woman and attending a Black institution.
So Ms. Lewis really segues into the part of having a comfortable, safe space, because some of us may not have that at home. And all of you, or some of the seniors in here, I think it's mostly seniors, are going to be heading to college, and you're really looking for those things that are called basic needs that we as educators understand and know all about. They're basic needs that you need to be comfortable where you're at, where you're safe, and where you can get a Class A education, which all of them, we're talking about the nuances and the excellent build of HBCUs, but we're also talking about the excellent education that all of them receive. All of them have upper degrees. They have all been to graduate school, some of them many, many times. MBAs, doctorates, they're on their way to be able to do these things. So it's not just a space for, I wound up there. And many of you are thinking about that with other things. It is a place where they actually absolutely belong. And we're going to do one more really fun thing. I'm going to talk about some data, and then I want you to ask some questions yourself. We're going to talk about the HBCU Homecoming, okay, which is an experience. It's an experience in itself. It's something that Miracle said that someone once posted, homecoming at an HBCU is not just a homecoming, it is a family reunion. It is a block party, it is a cookout. And you can have this experience, everyone can experience this. Everybody's invited to the cookout. And that's one thing about being at an HBCU, everyone is welcome. So 75% of the students that currently attend HBCUs are African American, but the other percentage are Latina or other nationalities that are underrepresented. And many white students attend HBCUs. So don't just think because it's a historically Black college or university that it is not inclusive, because that is not the case. So, pep rally, revival, as Miracles is saying, it's a physical and spiritual baptism in Blackness. Do you agree with this statement? Okay? Once, 30 seconds, why is homecoming much more than just a name?
Well, I'll just say the homecoming, the family reunion piece. at an HBCU, everyone comes back for homecoming. You are seeing people that, that attended, while you were there, before you were there, after. You get a chance to connect, rekindle, and network. I hope that we get a chance to talk about that, or maybe some of you have some questions about that. But the networking is very, very important, and that's the kind of thing that will help to amplify your degree by the people that you know and the things that they are doing and how they are willing to help you to succeed as well. But homecoming, absolutely fantastic, and it's the best family reunion, even better than mine, in terms of my blood relatives. Best family reunion I've ever been to because of the rich history and culture.
And so I would agree with Mr. Shabazz, and I'd just say that it's an opportunity to recharge your batteries and reconnect, not only with people, but with that earth and that campus and that building and those experiences you had as a freshman when you were lost and you didn't know where the dorm was or where to go to eat lunch, and you just get a chance to relive those. And like many colleges, universities, Southern also has a second homecoming. It's the Bayou Classic. If you've ever heard of that, one of the largest events in the country.
It is necessary.
And it was the first televised HBCU event on network television. It's still on Channel 4 every year. The game between Southern University and Grambling State, or Grambling Middle School.
Oh, shade.
Y'all do see the competition that goes on. That's another thing that breeds in these schools. It's a healthy competition.
Yes, echoing everything that they say. But ultimately, it's just a really good time. It's an entire week of events. Like, you go to class if you decide, and I hope if you go to an HBCU, you do go to class before the events. But you go to class, you leave class, you see everyone out on the yard. Everyone looks good on top of it. This is the opportunity for people to bust out the fits that have been waiting in the closet that they've been saving for the perfect time. And ultimately, I think it's also just a gentle reminder of what's actually important. Because when you're working and whatnot, you get lost in the sauce. You forget like, oh, assignment this, work that. But at homecoming, it's a reminder of family and connection. I think that's what's most important in life.
Definitely agree with everything that was said. Also, by being part of a group, I was, or am a member of Hbcu, which is the dance group for Hampton University, the band. Mr. Shabazz was also a member of the band as well. Saxophone, right?
No,
I'm sorry,
Brass D, best trumpet by C.
Sorry. So again, homecoming, you come back, and as an alum of the band, you're actually able to walk into the game, into the bleachers, and you're like, oh, Ebony Fire, oh, right here. He can come in, Brass D, oh, right here. You have a seat, 50-yard line area, so you get, all views. You're treated with so much respect as, like, exactly, VIP member. But definitely agreeing with everything that was said. Big family reunion. Nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Awesome, thank you. I am going to talk about some data, and then we're going to open up for some questions for maybe anyone that may have them. I wanted to just give you some key HBCU mobility outcomes. Over half, 52% of all institutions above the 95th percentile are historically black colleges and universities, okay? All but 6, 88% of historically black colleges and universities are above the 90th percentile. So Harvard, Princeton, Yale, you're talking 94. The 90th percentile, those 6 schools are included in the subgroups, okay? HBCUs have access rates, so access to African American students, 75% that currently attend historically black colleges and universities. But the national average, over 5 times of that plus Ivy League institutions, okay? National. Of the HBCUs with the highest access rates, included in this study that we have, and I passed out the study to you, this is a recent study, New York Times, and the sources are listed in the back of the study. 50% are located in rural communities. Over 80% of the judges and attorneys in this country attended historically black colleges and universities, which we also know of our current Vice President, Kamala Harris. Institution-wise, we have access, HBCUs have access to higher education as often being the biggest barriers for black students and representing underrepresented students. And there's just a couple of things that I want you to consider before we open up for questions. Again, this is a very safe space, so I want you to be able to ask some questions. HBCUs are remarkably successful at supporting social mobility and economic mobility in the country. The mobility rate is used to measure the social mobility of historically black college and university alumni, which we'll talk about, graduates from AC at Alexandria City High School that are now at historically black colleges and universities. A significant role in the story that is presented about the success of historically black colleges and universities. So these findings demonstrate not only that the investment in HBCU means, sowing into these institutions, but its primary drivers of success for historically black and marginalized people, contributing greatly to the success and advancement of HBCUs directly influences the continued improvement of economic outcomes for black Americans, and by extension, by society at large. Does anyone have any questions? Do you have any other pieces of your presentation that you want to talk about? Okay, so, go ahead. So we're gonna, how diverse was your HBCU and in what ways were all cultures celebrated? We just discussed about 75% of that. Are you part of a familial legacy? Yes, most of them have done that. Were there times when college was difficult? Of course. All of you are gonna head to college and there are gonna be difficult times, whether you attend an HBCU, where you go. There are highs and lows about college, and that's something that we'll talk more about this summer. Ms. Morris is gonna have a summer session about transitioning to college, and we'll talk about some of those things that happen. What's the difference between the HBCU network and other institutions? The network is absolutely incredible. It's as incredible as all of the schools that you've heard of, whether it's a primarily white institution. They're like, oh, the network, if you go to Harvard, you're going to be able to do this. The network is just as vast with a historically black college and university, maybe even more so. How did the HBCU network influence your career path? Greatly, and continuing to, as she's in graduate school at Georgetown. Everyone here has advanced degrees, including myself. Are these the end of your questions? Because I want to open up the questions to the audience. Raise your hand, please. I know I have some data people that have some questions. Oh.
When I went to Hampton, is there anything about your experience that you specifically remember every time you think about it? And is that something you'd like to share?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Just a few.
But of course I had, of course the times that you're talking about having fun, but then there were some parts that were very, very prolific. Mm-hmm. One of the things on Hampton's campus is the Emancipation Oak. And I think Mr. Shabazz and I, we both had a conversation about how that affected us of just being able to understand that with the Emancipation Oak, the emancipation was read there. And with that experience, just knowing and thinking about my ancestors and those that came before me, to hear that, those enslaved people were allegedly freed, or however you want to put it. I'm pretty sure Mr. Shabazz will do a lot of history about the real part. But hearing that and standing on that ground and just imagining that 100 and some odd years ago that my ancestors stood on that ground, to hear those words and just thinking about how they felt, that touched me. And with going on various college tours, I had even said this to my daughter, that when you walk on the campus, you think I'm being corny, but the campus will speak to you. And I felt like when I walked on Hampton's grounds, I felt like I was being spoken to, like this is home, okay?
Well, I'll just add on very quickly because, there's a lot that's unique about Hampton, including the fact that we're right on the water. So you can see yachts sailing up and down as you're studying on the banks. So it's an incredible place with an incredible campus. But just to speak to that Emancipation Oak, because that is one of the unique features on our campus, This is what made a difference for me. Having gone to Rutgers University, although I was a senior in high school and an advanced student, I was matriculating at Rutgers, obviously, and it did not feel like home. There was nothing that tied me to that predominantly white institution at all. Nothing. When I was on Hampton's campus and they were explaining that my ancestors had first learned that they were freed and they read the Emancipation Proclamation under this tree, there was no school that could ever compare to my ancestral experience. It was the same way that I imagine maybe some people who go to predominantly white institutions and people of the dominant culture, maybe how they might feel on campuses that are white. So I got the same experience, I got the same affirmation, and what I understood because of the Emancipation Oath, that's where the first education, they were first started to teach slaves, newly freed slaves, how to read under that tree. And to see, when you look behind, to see the whole sprawling campus that started from this one woman's desire to teach newly freed Africans to read, there was nothing that could compare. And I don't understand how anyone would consider anything else, personally.
Okay, now, I got one question.
So, putting any obvious biases that you might have aside, currently I'm looking at a lot of different colleges. I'm a junior, but I wanted to get a head start before going into the application process next year. Originally, I was completely dead set on leaving the country for college and going to a university outside of the United States. However, I'm starting to become a little bit conflicted because I've heard such good things about HBCUs that I really don't want to miss out on. So again, while I understand that you might have some bias due to your experience with HBCUs and having attended and graduated from them, what would be your recommendation for someone who is stuck between going to an HBCU and potentially getting just as good of an experience from an international school as well, in whatever different aspect that might be applicable?
There are many of these panelists that can answer this question, and I'm going to let the person that can answer that question for you much more appropriately. I can get you on the college and career piece of it, but go ahead and speak.
One of the things that I do outside of being a teacher is I work with youth, and I've had an opportunity to take youth across the country to visit all the HBCUs and to visit all the Ivy League colleges and to visit. And if you're stuck figuring out, trying to understand where to go, the best way to get a good insight as to what's going on at a school is to go there and see it and visit it. As the young lady said, when she walked on the campus of an HBCU, her eyes were open and she felt that connection. I didn't get a chance to go to an HBCU. And let me tell you, my experience going to school, studying mathematics, after I got past differential equations was, I was the only black person in the room. I was the only woman in the room. I was the only American in the room. So there was nobody there to help me. And so my classmates and my peers wouldn't even speak to me. The first time they said hello is when the teacher passed back the first test. I had 100 and they didn't, and they needed my help. That's the only reason why I was spoken to. So you are treated completely differently in different environments. I have a child who I had the opportunity to send an academic and all that. She went to Howard and she got a chance to start a Zeta chapter at Smith College. And so that experience of starting a chapter in an Ivy League school just for girls and all of the networks and connections she go, any state she go to, she can send an email, I'm going here. Every Zeta in the United States supports her. Every one of them. Thanks
So,
a lot.
absolutely. Thank you. You want to speak about it?
To answer, what's your name, young lady? Yeah. Zephyr? Nice to meet you.
Zephyr Chisholm Carter.
Nice to meet you. So to answer your question, Going international, yes, it would be fun, it would be a great experience, but as a recent recent college grad, I've realized that college is very difficult. And I'm not saying that to deter you, but there's gonna be moments where you're gonna be down, you're gonna feel beat up, you are going to feel like the world is kicking you down, like what's going on, like God, please tell me psych. But being at a HBCU made the experience more manageable. Like at no point did I ever feel like an outsider, which you could possibly, and I hope you don't if you decide to go international, which you could possibly feel at another school. But when you are surrounded by people that look like you and whose desire is to help you and uplift you, all the other life things, they can't get you down because you have a family and you have a community to support you.
Sorry, I have kind of two questions. One is, were there any times you found out that something was created by someone that was African American that you didn't know of? Like, was there either uncredited or just like not widely known? And are there any funny or weird experiences you guys had while attending your colleges?
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
Excellent question.
So my undergrad degree is world history and a minor in political science. I went to school in the 80s, 84. So if you look at some videos, some really old videos, you see the African medallions and some of the stuff you see now all the time, that wasn't around in the early 80s. So I went to school right at the beginning of all of that, the Public Enemy, the fight for power. So my experience, and not just belabor and pick things, what I learned most of all, or what was reinforced, is that European society came from Africa. And that what we call a lot of things are really creations of Africans, right? And the natural chain and evolution of people and the connection that was diminished by the creation of racism was just a myth. So they talked about that a while ago. Some of you all might think, for example, you guys were just like hit with the anniversary of Greenwood and the Black Wall Street. I learned that in the 80s. None of that stuff was, it's been around, but when you go to a HBCU, you immediately are exposed to that information, right? And if you're looking for that information, it's there. So I can't even pick one thing, man. It was so many things. My entire mind was blown when I went to Southern and just realizing all the things that I hadn't been taught.
Well, yeah, just to kind of extend that point, everything about the courses, because you are on a historically black college or university's campus, a lot of the disciplines are going to ensure that they make it culturally relevant. Black colleges are a place where black lives have always mattered. And some of us, I think, forget that. And I believe it was John O'Neill who talked about a chicken will never find his chickenness in an oven. So I didn't go to the University of Ovens. I went to Hampton, where I found who I was, and I built a network of people who were willing to support me. Again, a lot of the things, as he mentioned, that you learn about actually have its origins in terms of the development of human civilization, had its origins in Africa. So when you look at it like that, often at HBCUs, we learn that now, often in K-12 education, that we are learning from those who once learned from us. Because when you look at where the Greeks got their information, a lot of that came from ancient Kemet. And when you look at the people who are in Egypt today, those are the people who just arrived. if you look at the people that built the pyramids, and they were not slaves, knock it off. It's just a fact, it's a fact. That when you look at the people who built and designed the pyramids, when you look at all the advances in human civilization, when you look at where Pythagoras got his theorem, again, because they used that theorem to build the pyramids, it predated him, let's be clear. So my point is, everything that we learned in world history was reimagined and recentered in Africa where it should be. So I can't pick one thing because that was the focus. And having taught world here in ACPS, let me be clear, that world history, a lot of it is Western civilization, okay? And the idea that we would teach, and they do this often, they have Africa separate. They want to teach it separate from the rest of the continent. Look at how the Africans depicted themselves. I went to the Met in New York. They are clear about who they were. They went through great lengths to mix these pigments to make sure that the paint looked like them. So I know who I am, and I learned that at Hampton, and that's what you would learn at HBCUs, and often that information is filtered out through a Eurocentric lens, and you come out feeling different coming out of a PWI. I graduated from William and Mary, University of Maryland, College Park. So I've had the PWI experience in graduate school. And that's what I suggest, if any of you are considering that, maybe that's the place where you might decide to do that. But for your first experience, where you need that nurturing and that affirmation, HBCUs.
Good questions. Anyone else?
I don't think we answered the second question.
Okay, did we answer? Okay, the last of your question, hold your question, was what was a perked out experience that they may have had that was unusual? Just an odd experience? Like, what was like an aha moment?
I had one. Of course, you know, my HBCU is in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we house and have the Bayou Classic, of course, which is the celebration. And when I was growing up, I thought the Bayou Classic was just a New Orleans thing. I didn't know about the colleges as of yet. But one thing on the HBCU, I'll never forget my freshman year. It was around the time when Cash Money Records and all of that started, okay? And we used to have DJs on campus. So it would be a DJ with the music on the yard every single day of the week. And I remember feeling like I was at a concert every single day. And I remember meeting Cash Money and Lil Wayne and Baby and all these different people. And that was just the beginning. Like every month or so I was meeting another celebrity that would come on campus just to be with us. Not for a concert, but to walk around. Xavier was the same way. No Limit was really at Xavier because Partners in Crime, PNC, who was a part of No Limit, they attended, a couple rappers attended Xavier University. So that was my big thing, you know, seeing celebrities all the time on campus.
So one interesting, memorable thing that happened to me, and I was a writer on the school paper. No matter what college you go to, you get so many opportunities to do different things. So I was an editorial writer, and because I was very Afrocentric or pro-black, they always sent me to do those assignments. So Louis Farrakhan was speaking at the school, and they sent the school press to interview him, but we were in a room probably half the size of this, and the national press came in. So when the national press, NBC, CNN, they all came in, they pushed us so far back that we were standing against the wall with our bucket. And they had cameras and everything, and they had the boom lights, and they were just set up. And all the student press was packed up against the wall. And Farrakhan's security walked in the room, and he looked over the room, and he turned back out, he slammed the door, and he left. And 2 minutes after that, he came back and he said, anybody that's got a student, get out. And they threw all the national press out, and it was just 2 students, and Farrakhan let us interview him for like 45 minutes.
Wow, that's big. That's big.
I'll just speak to that very quickly. One of the things that was really notable for me at Hampton, but I know this happened at HBCUs, anyone that is a noted, eminent scholar of African descent, they make their way to these campuses. So in addition to the supreme education that you're getting, you get all of these guest lecturers who will come in and have residencies. Like I had Ernest Gaines, who wrote The Gathering of Old Men. He would come and he had a residency, and he would just talk and build and mentor. Nikki Giovanni and all of these greats will come through. Dr. Khalid Mohammed, Farah, yes, absolutely. So it was so many that would come through because they're HBCUs. And I wanted to be at a place where they were going to come to me because they valued what my decision, and I was affirmed at those places. And you come out different. An HBCU graduate thinks differently because you're not used to being marginalized in that space. So I have the same swagger that anyone would have if they were European and went to a PWI, because everything about my experience affirmed who I was. So by the time I get that degree, now we are meeting on a level playing field. I've never been fearful stepping into a room because I was outnumbered, because for 4 years, it was about me. So when I walk into a room, I feel confident, no matter where I am. I could be the only black person in the room, that's okay, because I understand that I'm representing for everybody that's not here. And you don't get that anyplace else. You think different when you've been marginalized and feared because of who you are when you are surrounded. I've never been surrounded, so now mentally I can't be surrounded.
Yes, to everything that Mr. Shabazz just said. And to add on to that really quickly, and to answer your question, one of my most interesting and fun experiences at Howard was my freshman year. We hosted a protest. So one thing about HBCUs is the spirit of activism. If we don't like something, you're gonna hear about it. And I think our freshman year, this was like the whole Tyrone case. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. Yeah, I mean, there's always something every year. But the student body, we were upset. We were like, something, the president needs to hear our voices and needs to hear our concerns. So we took over the A building, similar to how they had done back in the 60s. And we took it all over, and everyone, the administration, they were so upset. They were like, why would y'all block up the building? We wouldn't let security in. And while we were all inside, we had the community around us rally to support us. They were sending supplies, water, food, money for us to buy food. They were sending pillows, blankets. And when you enter the A building, there are people working on their demands and their protests. Then you also have people playing cards and playing spades in the corner too, or people dancing, or people rapping or making up a new song. So that spirit of activism is alive and well, and it inspired me. I did not stay overnight because if I have a bed, I'm going to sleep in it. But I did spend a couple hours, supporting them. So I would say, that protest, that student activism.
Question.
Hi, my name is Richard. My question is, if HBCU has a community college, will I feel welcome to HBCU as an Arab Asian American?
Oh, absolutely. So if you guys didn't get a chance to hear his question, he said, as an Arabic American, would I be welcomed at an HBCU? Excuse me, Arab Asian? I'm sorry, forgive me, I didn't understand the question completely. Do you want to repeat it?
If you guys have a community college, will I feel welcome or feel comfortable in HBCU as Asian American?
Absolutely, it's my answer to you. I am gonna, she's ready to speak in reference to how welcome you would be.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that surprised me when I first got to Howard, I was also a student ambassador, so I gave tours to the community and whatnot, trying to recruit people, so that's part of the reason why I'm here. But one of my favorite facts was that our largest international population were Nepalese. So if you're not familiar with Nepal, it's like a small country between India and China, somewhere in South Asia. So we have a large, very diverse community, so it's not just black people, but we have a large South and East Asian community as well, in addition to Middle Eastern individuals too. So I would say that the community is really diverse and everyone feels at home. We never make anyone feel like an outcast or that they don't belong. So I can say that, you would feel at home.
Yeah, I'll just quickly agree. Again, I think there's some data to support it, support what I'm about to say, but I think HBCUs are actually far more welcoming to people who are not black. than many PWIs. So I want to be clear about how tolerant and accepting we are. Because we are dominant in that space, there is no marginalization. We feel and we affirm students that are from various backgrounds. Because when they made that decision to go to an HBCU, they understood, just as many of us understand when we go into these spaces by the dominant culture, that although we're not going to be at the center, well, they understand that, and they're coming with that. But we're very accepting, very affirming. We had a few, whites and Asians that were, whites that were in the band and other in ROTC, in my education program on our softball team. And they got along very well. They came to functions. We were very accepting. We had a strong Muslim Student Association on this campus as well, and that had a lot of different people from all around the globe. So the short answer to your question is yes.
It's absolutely yes. And we have another ACPS employee that also attended an illustrious university. He can tell you about his school and his experience. Introduce yourself.
My name is Coach Benham. Some of you all have seen me in Minnie Howard. I am a graduate of the Tennessee State University, the #1 HBCU.
Oh.
I chose Tennessee State University on, I step up here.
Yeah.
I was a college athlete. I played football. I had a few opportunities to play at other places. Did not receive any offers from the HBCU. But my mother was a graduate of Hampton University. Right. My father was a graduate of Fort Valley State University. And that's what I grew up around, so that's why I know where to go. Familiar with the Atlanta Classic that happened between FAMU and Tennessee State in Atlanta. I was familiar with it, and I actually drove up to Nashville one day, gave them my tape, asked if I could play football. They said they called me back and said absolutely. Tennessee State's a very welcoming place, very diverse in regards to athletics and the student body. I am also a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I'll leave that there.
That's where you should.
I'll leave that there. And that being the case, February, everybody knows Black History Month, Carter G. Woods, and everybody familiar with Carter G. Indeed, considered the father of Black History. He started Black History Week, which is now known as Black History Week. That's all I got.
Your athletic experience.
Played 4 years, all 4 years is a wonderful experience, best time of my life. Hands down. Learned a lot from different people. I still talk to my coach. I graduated in 2009, and we still have conversations to this day. So they always look out for me. Everybody reference family, family's big, family's big.
Anybody have any questions about athletics at HBCUs? Most historically black colleges and universities are Division II.
Tennessee State is a Division I school.
Thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, we have Southern.
And this is Division I as well.
Southern, when I played. Yes, several Division I schools. Right now, North Carolina A&T has the #1 football and track program in the country. In regards to
in the country.
In the country. Yes, ma'am.
What was like your schedule like as a black student?
As an athlete, I'll give you my daily schedule. Every day I woke up at 6 o'clock. I had weightlifting at 6:30 to 7:30. I had breakfast from 8 to 8:30. First class started at 9. Went back to film at 2 o'clock. Practice started at 4. Film after practice went until 8 o'clock. Study hall until 9. And then I went to bed. Every day.
So it's rigorous being an athlete in college. Academically, you have to stay on par, but this schedule is absolutely
gotta be dedicated.
It's
always there is people there to help you. You got athletic advisors, teachers willing to help you. Always people there to look out for you. It's very tough, but if you're dedicated, you want to help you. You're there to receive the help. There's people there to help you.
Someone in the back asked about the food.
I don't know what y'all had, but fried chicken Wednesdays and fried chicken Fridays are unmatched. Hands down, you can't compete with it. I've never been anywhere else that had that. Fried Chicken Wednesdays? Was it on Wednesday?
First of all, sir, no.
Fried Chicken Wednesdays and Fried Fish Fridays.
Every HBCU had a cooking.
Yeah, I was going to go in.
Well, but Miss Lewis was in New Orleans, the home of good food. And in Louisiana in general, if it can't speak, it's dinner. Basically, they cook everything, and everything is delicious. The stuff I had never eaten before was delicious. I didn't think squirrel would taste that good. Delicious. That's just Louisiana. On campus, they didn't serve that.
But they did serve it on campus at some schools. And that's another thing, Titans, when you pick a college, know that you will be immersing yourself fully into the culture of that particular university or college, whether it's an HBCU or not. But I know my HBCU experience was centered around the cafeteria, right? So when you are in a cafeteria, you know, they might have fried alligator po' boys on the menu. You might have, I don't know, fried pork chops with gravy or something like that. What happens is that you have to, well, you will, because you're paying for it in your meal plan, you will fully immerse yourself into the culture of that particular place. If you go to Mississippi, right? If you go to Tubu, it doesn't matter where you go, you will be immersing yourself. And it's a great thing for you to open yourself up to immerse yourself. Yeah.
There are also plenty of vegan options and some avocado toast for some of y'all. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Okay, it is. Okay, I have one question here. Questions?
And then one in the back. Okay.
What advice you could give a senior? What advice you could give a senior after graduating? Because I'm still like very confused, like to go to a community college or go to a university.
You need to come see me. So of the College and Career Center School Counselor, come see me so that we can talk to you about what your options may be and what you may want to do next. I have some great advice for you in particular. A114.
Are a lot of these schools in the South? Because it seems like what you guys have been saying, a lot of them seem like they're in the South for certain states.
Majority of HBCUs are concentrated in the South, yes.
Howard is in DC, Shannon aware, so.
Which is also in the South.
Yeah, it is.
DC.
Howard?
20 minutes. 20-minute drive. But DC is below the Mason.
So majority of HBCUs are concentrated in the South, and also Alabama, I think we looked at, had the most number of HBCUs. And that's another history lesson we can go into at another time. Yes.
Speaking on the Alabama thing, I'm from Alabama, and my mom's alma mater is Alabama A&M. But other than that, I've been to a southern, like your university. I've been to the tailgating for homecoming. Can you speak more about your homecoming experience?
Homecoming is like, I can compare it to the cookout versus the barbecue. The big party outside. Yes, it's just a reuniting, like a thing where you can go and be with your old classmates and see the people who are the veterans of the university. So it's a big party, a big networking event, a big place for you to go and meet up with old classmates. Yes.
So y'all did say that most HBCUs are concentrated in the South, but y'all do cover every U.S. region. I mean, maybe not like Alaska, but like Northeast, Northwest, everywhere is covered, right?
Yeah, you got Chicago, California, and they may not be four-year institutions, but of the 107, they do cover the diaspora. So it's north, south, east, and west of Texas, California's a few community colleges. Chicago has 1 4-year and then 1 2-year. And then most of these, with the East Coast, they receive. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to quickly speak to that, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is based in our history. The fact of the matter is, because of the fact that many of our ancestors were enslaved, and so the numbers were concentrated in the South. So you would build schools after most of our schools, with the exception of Lincoln and Cheney, were built after the Civil War ended in 1865. So basically, similar to what Booker T. Washington once said, you cast down your buckets where you are. So we built institutions where we were so that we could educate, so they could educate themselves and their sons and daughters where they were. So it wouldn't have made much sense to build these universities in places where we weren't in the greatest number.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. That's excellent.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm also a director, so. All right, got it. Okay. And there's agricultural and mechanical and in fact, you know what, let me have Brother Vincent.
I just wanted Mr. Shabazz to add on that many of the schools, especially in the South, you'll see it says Florida A&M, it says Southern University A&M. They've started removing the A&M on some of them. But that means agricultural and mechanical, because when these schools were established, they had a focus, right? And as Mr. Shabazz was saying about you build where you are, they were trying to establish schools that would put African Americans on the path to independence as it concerned managing their own homesteads, their own towns, and providing for themselves, the agricultural part. All right, so many of them started out that way. And then if you dig a little deeper, you get to the Du Bois and the Howards, and that's when you get the intelligentsia.
Yeah, and to answer your question, there's Bowie State as well, but that's still in the South technically, but Lincoln in Pennsylvania, Morgan State in Baltimore, Cheney as well. I'm not familiar with that one. Oh, and DSU, Delaware State as well, in Delaware, so. Oh, UDC, yeah, in DC. So there's plenty of HBCUs like here and in the northeast eastern area as well. Do you have any more questions? Oh, you're coming
We got one there and then right here.
I guess I just wanted to ask, is there anything, what have you directed exactly? I don't know.
These shows. Oh, yeah, I direct Black History program, yeah. So that's my producer over there.
Question.
Hi. Do you believe that some work opportunities were taken away from you since you went to an HBCU?
That's an excellent question.
What was it?
He wanted to know if any career opportunities were taken away from you because you attended an HBCU. And let me tell you why that's an excellent question, and I'm going to let the panel answer. It's because we have many African American students that come to me and say, Ms. Morris, I'm not going to get a great job if I go to an HBCU. Ms. Morris, I'm going to get a better job if I go to VCU. And there's nothing wrong with you going to VCU, okay? But what I'm saying to you is that the ground is level and the data is driven, and it proves that that is not the fact, all right? So if you want some truth, make sure you come to A114 so that we can make sure I give that to you. And I'm going to let the panelists, because that's a soapbox situation for Ms. Morris.
I'll address this real quick, because I know many of the panel probably want to speak to this. But first of all, if you go to the HBCU, you're actually going to do better, particularly if you are an African who is going to an HBCU.
I have data for that.
And the data supports it. Black graduates of HBCUs actually wind up making more money over their lifetime than black graduates of predominantly white institutions. So the fact of the matter is that you will do better according to the data and science, not people's feelings, or they've internalized white supremacy. So this is not going to be better than this. Malcolm used to say something to the effect of some black people will go to the white restaurant because the ice is cold. It's not colder, man. It's 32 degrees or below. It's the same thing. Yeah. But one of the reasons why you do better, I want to be clear about this because we spoke about networking a little bit. Here's what happens. Often when black people attend predominantly white institutions, which are great schools, like I said, if it's free, it's for me. If you can get a scholarship and you can go. I don't have anything against that. But my point is that everything has a cost. Here's the cost. Very often, and I experienced this in grad school in PWI, very often what happens is when you go and you're surrounded by a culture that's not your own, they're not going to give you the opportunities. So there are a lot of things that professors know about, fellowships, graduate assistantships, And if they're looking at a sea of people that look like them and one or two people that are not like them, guess who's going to get those opportunities? Those other people. Further, when you graduate, we all joke up here, I don't know if you've heard some of it, but it's a friendly rivalry. But let's be clear, when you graduate from an HBCU, it's a family. And if you didn't graduate from an HBCU and you're black, you're not in that HBCU family. So if I go to a job interview and someone went to Howard, when they see Hampton on my resume, oh, we have something in common, right? And it's the same experience that students that are white might get if they're graduates of UVA. Oh, me too. Okay, but here's the flip. If you are black and went to UVA, perhaps even if you are going, if you have a UVA graduate who's interviewing you, if they have some internal biases, if they are still carrying vestiges of racism in their own heads, they're still not going to go with you. And you know what? If I'm making a decision, I'm wondering, my first question is, were you on scholarship? Oh, so you chose to pay full price to be marginalized. Okay, well then that tells me something. I might not hire you either. So, but no, here's what I'm saying. But that has an impact. And that's why we wind up doing better. The network, when you go to HBCU, we look out for one another. And sometimes when you go to a predominantly white institution, even the alumni are not going to look out for you because sometimes they have internal biases. So the data supports it. It's a fact. You will do better. And again, I know that flies in the face of some of us who internalize white supremacy, so we might think that something is better. No, it's different. You have a different experience there. You can get educated very well at a predominantly white institution, and many of our greats have gone to PWI. However, more of our greats have gone to HBCU. It's just a fact.
I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank you for not just being present, but being present today. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to the panelists, come to the College and Career Center. It definitely is a place to be for juniors. We're preparing for you. Seniors, that's where my heart is. So, thank you. Have a great day. I think the bell's about to ring in a moment, so you might...
Same thing's going to happen.
Want to roll up? Thank you.